Welcome back, guys, to Uncle Pookie's Barbecue. I'm your host, Uncle Pookie, and today is going to be one of the quickest and simplest recipes I've ever done. We're going to do country style ribs. This is a very, very simple deal to do, and there is a couple of different styles or cuts of what they call country style ribs. One of them comes from the baby back or the loin section. It's kind of a combination both. You've got some loin meat and part of the loin back ribs. This is actually the country style, they call them country style ribs, but this is actually part of the butt or the shoulder. You can kind of see here when we get these together. There is a little bit of a blade bone in some of these pieces, but you can actually look at them at like a cross section and see that layer of fat. I don't know if I can really get this to you, but you can see in that cross section the layer of fat across the bottom and the different muscle groups from the shoulder meat. So that is what we've got here today. Again, you've got a piece here that's got a little bit of that shoulder blade bone in it, but you could tell from it being part of that Boston butt cut, it has got a lot of fat. This is going to be very moist and juicy. It is going to take a little while to render all this fat off of it, but it's going to be very good. But again, it's super simple. Now, sometimes you do get something like this in there that I'm just not a big fan of. You know how I am. I like to cut things down and do more work on the front end than when I'm ready to eat. So I am going to cut some of these. Basically, this is just like an artery or a vein that comes through every once in a while. We get it when we get those Boston butts and we start trimming them up. And I just like to get rid of that extra bloody section, so make everything as clean as possible on the front end. That is like a little bruise or something here, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out as well. But everything on this is going to be just super simple to do. What I like to do is kind of the thing to do is a layer of flavor. So we're going to turn these on their side. And I'm going to clean up a little bit here. I'm going to apply some of my salt and pepper seasoning just to get a base seasoning on here. Get this salt to kind of open up these pores. And to me, it's kind of getting the meat ready to accept some of the other flavors that are coming. I'm actually going to cook these up just like I do ribs anyway, but make it a dry rib. I'm not going to put... I'm going to put a little butter and maybe a little bit of sauce type seasoning in the wrap when I wrap them up to render the rest of this fat. But I'm going to keep this real simple. I don't want a wet sticky rib as my final product today, so we're going to make this a super quick and simple recipe. I'm going to apply this salt and pepper love to the ribs now and let them sit for about 30 minutes before I get my barbecue seasoning on. I want the salt to kind of open everything up and get things ready to roll. So we're going to let this sit for about 30 minutes. Come back in with the BBQ Luv recipe, BBQ Luv seasoning, and we'll go ahead and get the smoker started up in the meanwhile and be ready here shortly. Stay tuned. Well, here we go back. We have been waiting about 25 minutes to let this salt and pepper love get in and soak in real good. Kind of get these pores open on these pork butt, pork shoulder country style ribs. And I'm just going to go over the top of that with a good dose of my BBQ Luv Rub. It's got a good mix of sweet and then some little bit of spice. I wouldn't really call it hot at all. It's more sweet than hot, but it's got a little bit of a kick to it, which is good. And we're going to go ahead and just get all sides and edges covered on this. Nice. I'm not going to say super heavy, but it's going to be a heavy dose of the seasoning on here. I don't think you really put too much. A couple of those strands are going to be a little bit thin, so they're going to be a little sloppy, but some of these others are kind of cut to a uniform thickness. And it's going to be kind of a mix between a rib and pork butt. The way it's cut, we're not going to cook it to, 200 degrees where everything's falling apart and stranded. We're going to kind of leave it in the form and shape that it is. Now I take that back. We are going to cook it to around 195. I do want a little bit of bite to it, but I don't want it to be. I want it to be good and tender. That's why we're going to wrap it up in the foil with a little bit of butter, maybe a little bit of juice. I want to kind of braise the meat while it's wrapped up so that that fat will just melt right through, give it all that moisture and give it all that flavor. All this rub is going to add to it. Like I said, don't know that we can really put too much barbecue flavor on pork anyway, but it's going to be like a pork butt. You want it to be on there really good, a good dose of it, so that it can really soak into the meat, get into the pores that have opened up with the salt previously. And I'm going to turn back over on this side. And there you have it. Quick and easy. We will let this sit for about 30 minutes. And we just started the fire on the drum smoker, so we'll let it get up to temp and stabilize. During this time, the meat is going to be sweating a little bit. We come back to it, and we'll put it on the smoker. Stay tuned. Well, all right, here we go. It is time to put the ribs on. Just double check it. I'm looking for some light seasoned areas, as I'm going to go back over the top of this with my barbecue seasoning. I'm going to try to put on some of these that are staying together, I'm going to put that fat side down just to kind of protect the meat. And then on some of these, you don't have a fat side, so it just depends on how it's cut, how it's coming together. But it's one of the kind of the disadvantages to when you're doing this off of the pork butt, because they don't really have any shape to them or anything that like the baby back or the loin back country style ribs will do. So as this rub sweated in, it puts on a really nice color. So I'm just going to kind of put another little light dose over it, make sure we get even coverage across there. And we've got the drum loaded up with the Jealous Devil lump charcoal. Thank you to them, of course. And then we also have a couple of chunks of pecan wood in there. I'm going to get this lid on here real fast so that it doesn't kind of climb out, get out of range. I'm going to cook around 275. They're going to be on here for maybe an hour and a half. Maximum is going to be 2 hours. Those are smaller, thinner strips. So we're going to check them about an hour and 15 minutes. And then we're going to wrap them up, put some butter and some seasoning in there, and let them roll. So stay tuned. All right, we are back. I just pulled these ribs off of the smoker. And what I'm going to do is treat them just like regular old baby back ribs. We're going to put a little butter and some more of my seasoning in this foil. And that way the butter is going to add moisture, which will help kind of braise these ribs and help to render them. What I'm going to do is put 4 pieces in each foil wrap. And I'm going to put on some more of my BBQ Luv Rub here, because I want, as the seasoning, as the butter melts, I want the seasoning to really just reinforce the flavor that we've already got going on. So I want to make sure I got a good bit of seasoning in here, as it, again, it just creates that moisture, and then the seasoning itself is just going to continue to cook in. No real science to wrapping them up, because I do, in this case, I want a little bit of space. I want some room for that moisture to kind of steam and render the rest of this fat on here. So we're going to double wrap these ribs, just so that while they're on the smoker, if I happen to put them down, if I happen to puncture that foil layer at all, that will help to protect that meat, keep it from protect the moisture in there to keep it from leaking out and the ribs to dry out. So good bit of butter in there. Like I said, I want it to create as much moisture to create a liquid with this fat that renders off of these ribs, and put as much moisture in that packet as possible so they will continue to get tender and season up. So again, this is another one of those just really simple, easy to do recipes, which that's kind of the point of my channel right now, is just to get everybody out cooking. Get some of these easy to do recipes that everybody can do. There's no intimidation factor. There's nothing to say I feel like something is going to be too expensive or too tough to do. So I'm going to put them back on the smoker side by side for about another hour maybe. I haven't temped these yet. There's no real need to. I just basically cook to color until you wrap them up in foil. So what we're going to do is let these go. I'm going to check them in about an hour, see how much they've rendered. And then once they're to the point where they're almost falling apart, if I had a true rack of ribs, I would go as far as almost ready for the bones to just come clean off with no restriction whatsoever. Then I'm going to put them back on the smoke, on the top rack of the smoker. Let some of that moisture and that juice on the outside come off. I'm going to put another light layer of this seasoning on, because I want these to be like a dry rib, is essentially what it is anyway. So that's what I'm trying to go for. If you wanted to put some sauce, some fruit juice in this wrap, that would be the time to do it, is now. And then baste a little sauce on them when you take them out of the wrap. But again, I want these to be like a good dry rib. So anyway, we're going to get these back on the smoker, and we'll check back with you in about an hour. All right, here we go. The ribs are done in the foil. Got plenty of juice and liquid. So what I'm going to do is transfer them back to the smoker very fast, because they are warm. And I'm going to put some more seasoning. Ooh, they're hot. That's why you wear 2 sets of gloves, and I didn't. We're going to put all these ribs back. Ooh, I am in a minute. Gonna put them back on there. Basically what I'm going to do is just put another light coat of seasoning over the top. My fire is getting really warm, so that's going to set on there really well. Just want to show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put the lid back on it so that it doesn't get too hot. But we're going to do that with the rest of these ribs. Let that outside moisture cook down a little bit, get a little tacky with that seasoning on there, and we'll be good to go. I'll bring them inside in just a minute. Stay tuned. And there you have it, the finished product. Again, I wanted to do these like a dry rib, so they are still mighty hot too, but pull that bone out and get into some of that meat. I've just been pulling a little bit of it together. It's still a little tight in this case, but essentially this type of country style rib is almost like a pork steak. It's not cut in the same direction, but you have 2 types of country style ribs. You have one like this that comes off the shoulder or the the Boston butt. Then you have the one that comes off the loin at the end of the ribs. And that they both turn out great. So I don't have to worry about watching me eat, but I got to try. Still good and moist. And essentially it's just a straight barbecue flavor. The barbecue seasoning I have, the sugar, the paprika, the peppers work out really, really well. It's not as tender as pulled pork would be, but that's not what we're trying to do here. So that's the thing. Don't get discouraged. It's a good opportunity to make some good ribs. And again, it's kind of a blank palette. You can choose to do them wet and sauce them up at this point. You could do what some people call sticky ribs or muddy ribs, but it's where you put the sauce on a little earlier and let it caramelize a little bit more and let it get tacky to the ribs. Or you can go like this. These are more of a dry rib where it's really nothing but seasoning. No sauce. I didn't put any juice in the wrap or anything, just butter and barbecue seasoning. So they turned out really good. We're going to be happy with these here just shortly. So anyway, appreciate y'all tuning in. If you like this video, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit me up on Facebook or Instagram with any questions or anything, or on the page itself, the YouTube page. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and y'all have a good evening.